disappointed in our loss to Pitt, and put a lot of hard work into really every game. But in that particular game, there was a lot of optimism and confidence, and anticipating a really hard-fought game, but one that we believed we had a great chance to win, and still feel that way afterwards, with some missed opportunities. I present to my team that I believe there's 3 to 5 critical plays per game, and there's a great study that's been done regarding that. And this game was no exception. There were 3 to 5 plays that, if you look back at it and kind of encapsulated it, that shifted momentum and ended up determining and influencing outcome. I like my team. I like how hard they try. I like how they've embraced the culture, and we're moving up the scale of the effort and the intent to position mastery and execution. That's basically where our team is right now. And so we're becoming better in terms of our position mastery and playing our spots. Execution is not holding yet long enough from beginning to end in all 3 phases to have the outcomes that we would like. But more and more plays are looking how we would like them to be. So we'll continue to expedite and accelerate that process the very best way that we can. And I think that we're an explosive offense, but we're not a consistent offense at this point. And so if you're looking at what I see as our current state of affairs, we're capable of scoring kind of anywhere at any time. We have some explosive players to do so. But we haven't demonstrated yet that we can do it from beginning to end of a game. And defensively, I would say similar. While the big plays are reducing as the season is going on, there's still some inconsistencies, either through third downs or penalties that are coming up. However, in reviewing the film of the pass interference, besides Andrew Brown's obvious penalty, the other ones, there was one that I would take back. The others, I would encourage my players to play the same way. And then special teams, our punt game has been very, very strong through thus point in the season, and it was actually too strong in this game, giving the returner more space and a little bit more room to catch it before we caught up to him and covered him than what we would have liked. And so directional placement of the ball, both on kickoff and punt in that game, as well as our coverage units need to be improved. So hopefully that gives you kind of a summary of what I thought, and I'll take specific questions.
It seems as if we went over that final play of the first half from every angle, but it seemed as if your offensive players had done a better job of tracking the guy down, that maybe the time runs out or they have to kick a field goal. Do you work on that, where your offensive players have to become tacklers?
I would say we've made them more aware of than working on, and I couldn't in good conscience say that we practice it. When our defense has a takeover in practice or a turnover in practice, the offensive players are encouraged to square up and get in front of them. But to say that we've tackled to the ground or anything like that, or worked it specifically, it's been more awareness oriented than preparation for. But I think it's a valid point.
Bronco, for a lot of teams, the aggression you showed with 40 seconds left in the half is unusual.
Yeah.
You showed us the bowl game last year when you guys were getting your butt handed to you and how you were responding. Is there a way you have to teach the players to embrace that
Sure.
aggressive attitude so that if something bad does happen, they still have that,
Sure.
we don't care kind of thing? And does that go against the historical kind of thing that you're battling a little bit?
Yeah, so I can't speak to the historical as much, other than I know that we have overcome a more than 5-point deficit only one time since 2012 and playing from behind. And I was just made aware of that today. My only point by substantiating with that data is that, man, I like to win, and I like to be aggressive in doing so in terms of game management. And I'm pushing every boundary that I possibly can to help the program and the young men that I'm coaching and our team to have that mindset. And again, to just to go over it again, based on how we performed on the first down was kind of going to determine what we did. And once maybe you could, if you use the shark analogy, and you know you see an opportunity and that it kind of, you want it to capture the momentum and move forward, and on that particular play, Pitt actually rushed 6. They pressured and only had 2 underneath in coverage and 3 on top, and so holy cow, it could have been a giant play, but it wasn't, and we all know how that played out. And so I have expressed my philosophy to the players of how aggressive I'd like to be in not only play calling but also how they play, and with that comes risk, and I'm accountable for that, and I always share that with them. I take accountability in front of them whenever things that I am responsible for, and usually if they understand the why, they're okay, and so I try to keep them educated as much as I can.
I think you might have just answered it, but
Sure.
keeping with theme of everything that happened in the first half, you look back and the quarterback draw late against UConn, the fake field goal against Oregon, the fake punt against Duke. Those are just 4 instances that aggressive play calling didn't work. Does that hinder how you continue to call a game, or do you stick to what you know best and kind of your roots there?
Yeah, I think what it shows is just the continued, and I think it's kind of verified of where our program is. We're a play or 2 away from critical plays being able to be made. So execution is driving that. I don't think necessarily the choices are driving it. I think the execution of the choices is driving that, and that's happening really all over the field right now. And so while we are battling hard and closing the gap and man, just working our guts out to get to those moments, now pulling those moments off. And I think I shared this when I was hired. There's a giant difference between losing close games and winning close games. And first of all, the mindset has to be in place, and second of all, the execution to match the mindset has to be there. And so we're still working on both parts. And again, I'm not sure how long, but I'm positive it will happen. But I think what you're seeing is just a work in progress.
Do you feel like you're due for one of those plays?
Well, the payment of the dues will happen, I think, just when our execution and our habits get deeper.
Bronco, so much of what North Carolina does with its passing game is horizontal
Yes.
and getting guys in space. How would you evaluate to date how your defense has done tackling in open space? In other words, how prepared do you feel like you are to defend that offense?
So I don't think we're tackling exceptionally well in space right now. When you play dominant defense, especially dominant 3-4 defense, the edges really become a strength because those outside backers really become and really are recruited to be a couple of the featured players on the entire team. In fact, Coach Papinga, our outside backer coach, I think every player that he's coached while we've been together has had a chance to go on to the NFL with the exception of one who got hurt. And so what we're finding now between Chris Peace and Jordan Mack, and we used Mark Hall a little bit in the game against Pitt just to add a little bit more size because of what they did. But really, Chris Peace and Jordan Mack are showing capability and showing ability, but still working on consistency, just like the rest of our team. And so we're still missing more plays in the open field than what I would like, but we're starting to make more than we had before. So a work in progress.
Sam Hayward made his first field goal attempt the other day. What have you seen from him in practice as he becomes more acclimated to being a football player, and is he an option on kickoffs?
He is an option on kickoffs because he can place the ball exactly where we want it, and that absolutely is something that will be considered, especially as the quality of opponent and conference play continues to increase and climb, and the volatility of who's returning it against us and the explosive nature. If we can have someone put it where they're not and do it consistently, yeah, that would be an option. And I'm glad the ball went through the uprights. It was great. In pregame, you know, after the warm-ups, there's a field goal, there's a punt and a field goal, and our field goal hit the crossbar and I think came out. And so I'm glad we made the one in real time and missed the one in warm-ups. He's showing capability in practice, though, and he's becoming someone our team is counting on, which is good.
Bronco, some players have sort of talked about the concept of a breakthrough, maybe in a rival. Is it something you have to sort of guard against, that,
Sure.
hey, all of a sudden we're gonna arrive, it's more of a process?
Yeah, and I think I'm responsible for that. When I've arrived, I was talking about how long and what I said is before a breakthrough, I didn't know how long it would take or with whom, but at some point there would be a breakthrough. So I think they're using the same words that I used. The intent breakthrough wasn't a game. It was basically a program state, meaning that winning consistently is the expectation. No matter where you play, who you play, that's just what is expected and what we're used to, and that's the norm. And so I find when I speak to the team, sometimes I talk to them like I've coached them for 11 years rather than almost one. And so I have to backtrack sometimes and add context to some of the points of reference that I'm using. And so, yeah, the breakthrough to me isn't an event. It's a state change, meaning that almost like water going from a solid to a liquid or vice versa. You know, it takes time and it's noticeable, and then there's a whole different place and a whole different thing that you've created.
Bronco, the players that were here earlier were talking about how, you know, playing a team that's won 8 straight road games is just another game and all that stuff.
Yeah, I didn't know.
As a guy who's been coaching for a long time, and now that you've had a little taste of what the ACC is like, what does it say to you about North Carolina that they've won 8 straight road games, and how much attention does that get?
Yeah, it won't get any other than North Carolina is a consistent winner now. And when Coach Fedora took over, I don't know what it was like or how long that took, but they are a consistent winner now. And so once we've addressed that, that's really all I'll present to the team is we're playing a consistent winner that's an ACC opponent. And then it just goes to plays and jersey numbers and our own focus. And man, we spend every ounce of time we have right now just on our own performance. And we acknowledge the opponent and what they do in the schematics, but man, anything beyond that is nothing we can control nor we can influence. And we're working hard enough right now, just zeroing in on what we can control, and that's a full-time job right now for our team and myself.
Kurt was in here earlier and talked about how it was mentioned in a meeting this morning that Smoke specifically probably, you know, you could have got him. He was hot on Saturday and maybe didn't get as many touches, and maybe he looks to get him more involved. How do you think you've involved him to this point?
Yeah.
He's around 15 touches a game.
Yeah. So in the last game probably could have been expanded some, but I've been pretty happy through the course of the year, especially the last few weeks as the use of Olamide and Keon and Andrew, Joe Reed, but also, Albert Reed. I kept thinking Andrew Brown, and he's not a ball carrier. Yeah, it could be, yeah. Donnie Dowling, and so I think we've done a pretty nice job of establishing that, but once we got behind right before halftime, that there was I don't think we found our rhythm, and I think there was a bigger blow than that needed to be in terms of consistency and some of the things that we had been doing prior, and there was a significant change on Pitt's part. Some of you asked me that after the game, did they do anything different? And much more aggressive in terms of 6-man pressures, much more aggressive. So as soon as they got a slight lead, their plan changed, and so balance could have helped us more, and Smoke's touches, I'm not sure how many more, but that could have helped some.
Talk about touches and such. Olamide was a big part of the rushing game last season. I think he had 30-some carries this year, just a couple. Is there a thought of getting him more touches that way?
Possibly. So one of the things that we're looking and is pretty unique is, so I'm having a much clearer idea what our depth actually is now, and And so I'm also, we monitor GPS and what we call the catapult system, which is how much volume players are getting and what they can actually handle. And with Alameda, and you saw him cramp up a hamstring even in the game, and coming back from a hamstring early in fall camp. So the intent and the hope would be to expand as many of his touches and ways as possible, but we're right at his threshold of if much more happens, that very well could relapse, and then we're without him. And so looking to push the boundaries a little more, but volume right now is contributing to him.
You mentioned using Mark Hall some to get more size. Pitt had a lot of really big guys.
They did.
Both sides, fullback. Down the road, as you kind of work toward your recruiting model, do you envision having a bigger maybe front seven in terms of weight or height or both?
Yeah, both. So our interiors right now collectively, and again, I love the players that I have, and I'm really happy they're here, and I'm really enjoying coaching them. And as we look to build the program, absolutely more size, absolutely more depth, absolutely more length, absolutely more ability, and just more of everything. But that's where the program is. And so I keep that in the back of my head, and what I know and what I see for the future. And in the meantime, I love coaching the team that I have and helping them reach their true potential. And I was really encouraged by a lot of things that I saw defensively, and most of Pitt's numbers were below what they had coming in. And I thought there were some consistency issues, but really a few field position things here or there, and maybe one drive in the third or fourth quarter, but I still saw progress in what they did and how they did it against that team in reference to the numbers.
I don't know how deep you are into North Carolina tape study, but they announced today that Matt Collins is done for the season.
I just watched the play, actually.
Yeah, and 2 years ago here he had touchdown catches of 63 and 57 yards. What do you think how do you think that might affect what North Carolina tries to do?
I don't think it'll affect it much based on what I've seen this year. I think he had 13 catches total going into our game. You'll have to verify that. But what I did see on the ball that he caught where he hurt his shoulder is, man, it was looked like about a 50-ish yard deep pass, and he can run really well with size and length. And so I'm sorry for him, and I don't know how long that injury will go out. But it would take a vertical threat off the field for them. I don't know all their personnel well enough yet, but I do know that their ability to move the football is more, again, horizontal than vertical. And if a vertical threat is taken away, that helps, at least in terms of limit number of options we have to defend.
Bronco, you played 8 true freshmen. I know you've always played a lot of freshmen. As a new coach in a new system, any advantage to those guys not having habits to break, unlike maybe the upperclassmen in some cases?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think that and we have to be careful. The literature on habits talks about replacing, because it's not really possible to eliminate a habit you have, but you can build a stronger one on top of. And so and that takes a little bit more work. But in one of our meetings today, it was interesting. One of our coaches made a comment about Joe Reed and how the look in his eye from beginning to end in his presence was one of capability and optimism, and that he was simply had a can-do attitude because he doesn't know anything else other than getting things done. And so, to your point, certainly there's that, because environment does have an influence on us. And it's fun to be around all of our players to help add new habits to the older ones, but also to enrich the ones of younger players that have had success to help them develop. So, yeah, there's a freshness and a newness to that, and we're not playing any first years for the sake of that, but certainly there's a difference right now because their experiences are different. Anything else?
Coach, I think outside of the UConn game, you guys have been in a lot of shootouts. This game potentially could set up as another shootout game just because you guys both run high-tempo games. Is it weird as a defensive guy
Yes.
to be playing in so many kind of shootouts, or is that kind of the way that the college football landscape is kind of starting to change maybe?
I think college football is heading that way. That doesn't mean I have to get used to it or like it. And haven't really gotten used to it and don't like it from a defensive perspective. And so this is atypical in terms of what I'm used to. But again, invigorating for the challenge that it brings. And so, I think as a coach, you take the team on where they are on any given day and week and stage, and then you kind of meet them there and work from that point and try to help improve everything about what we're doing. And so, I don't know what the score will be, other than I'd like to keep improving, and the more the better. And each challenge is different. While some of the points of reference when we name this game or that game, that might have been game 3 or game 4, but the nature of opponent, each one of those games really takes on an identity to itself and the styles of offense that we're playing. And so this will be more like playing our own offense, not identical, but there'll be some point of reference there, I think, that might give some advantage just in terms of a place to start from.
Coach, you mentioned earlier that your offense is not consistent. What specifically needs to be improved for the offense to be consistent the rest of the way?
Oh, I think if you look at the start of the game of just this last week, and if you think about looking at where the ball was going, how it was going, and then simply the ability to connect on some of those bigger plays, it wasn't really methodical drives that were putting us in the end zone. There were giant plays that were happening. And so we're explosive right now, but the more explosive and the more you rely on long plays, really the less consistent you can appear. And so there is a balance in there between the number of times that we throw intermediate and long and the number of times the ball is delivered horizontally or we're running it mixed in with that. And so that mix is usually what adds to consistency and easy to, if you're not really right on in terms of the awareness and communication with players and our quarterbacks and managing the game, easy for that to get tilted a little bit one way or the other. And so the consistency will come with the right balance from beginning to end versus the game management of deep, intermediate, horizontal, and run game, and that will add to the consistency. The more it just becomes throw deep, the less consistent it will be. Maybe the more entertaining to watch, but not so much consistent.
I got 6 games down and 6 to go in the regular season. Do you traditionally kind of self-scout, look back at a halfway point, and do you do that with this team and look back what you've done right and what you've done forward and
Sure.
what needs to happen? Obviously, you have a goal of getting to your 12th straight bowl game, but
Yeah.
a big challenge ahead these next 6 weeks.
No question. So what's changed over the number of years in my coaching is that there used to be a giant event that happened during the bye week of self-scout and self-analysis. And in the role that I have as head coach and defensive coordinator, that now is weekly. And so, man, hard to remember the teams we've played and in what order. And sometimes it feels like it's even a different team I'm coaching, just from some of the things and some of the maturity I've seen and some of the injuries that have happened and just different experiences. But I know where we are now, and the road is still steep. It's still difficult. We have a lot of work ahead. There's a difference between being disappointed and defeated, and our players are disappointed that they didn't win last week, but certainly not defeated and anxious to play and continue to improve and grow. Everyone realizes, myself included, the record isn't what we would have hoped, but I'm focusing so much on the process right now. It really is there's so much to do in relation to the process that it's to look past that at all to the outcome, even though that's normal and human, really gets in the way because it's so many little things need to be cleaned up in terms of, again, execution and becoming consistent.
Bronco, Kurt looked kind of out of sorts early in the second half after he got whacked so many times early. And he said today he got kind of impatient with the ball and ran out of the pocket too fast and all that stuff. But he started 6 games in his college career.
Yeah.
Kind of where would you assess where he is in that development?
Man, I'm glad he's here. I think he has I think he's helped our team. I think he has great potential, and I think he's a very good quarterback who's learning and growing every game, just like our entire team is. And yeah, he did get impatient. He got hit a couple times early, and he hit hard. And Pitt's, again, once Pitt got the lead, their approach was, man, pressure, 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 pressure. And it's normal for especially a quarterback that likes to be in space, step out of the pocket, and extend plays. So I think that speeded him up a little bit, but holy cow, tons to learn from for him and us, and it became where we were a little bit more reactionary in terms of offensively than making him pay for some of the pressures and slowing him down, and then just becoming methodical, and because we had tons of time.
Take questions from Doug and David, then we'll wrap up.
I think you said Saturday that you made some special teams adjustments or changes during the game. What kind of action, what's the extent of the taken since then?
Really no more action other than staffing discussions and conversations, and I really think that our continued progress besides schematic emphasis and the execution thereof becomes on using the right players in the right positions at the right time. And so that includes special teams. We've worked really hard in all phases to do that, but it's becoming clearer that in our coverage unit, especially kick coverage, that we need a few more of the right players in the right positions at the right time. And that might mean their workload off another special teams. We might take a player off punt return, so to speak, to manage that volume and put them on kick return and have some of our best tacklers. And I think we moved possibly 3 defensive starters at halftime to the kick coverage unit. And so possibly moves like that could happen. But again, we're managing a very thin roster, not much depth, and only so much work capacity. And so there'll be trades made, basically, to have, again, the right players in the right position at the right time.
You mentioned earlier that Alamity's cramping was evidence that he had pretty much reached his limit. We also saw on the sideline Taquan, for lack of better example, or better word, puking. Was that an example of him reaching his limit, or was it just something completely unrelated?
I'm not sure. I can't speak to that, and I wasn't aware of it. I really like the conditioning of our players, physically conditioned. What they're learning now is man, what it takes to really concentrate to play high-quality football from beginning to end. And that's a new habit as well, to be able to maintain the mental concentration and determination and confidence through ups and downs, as well as the physical part. And so I can't speak to Smoke specifically on that because I wasn't aware of it, but that is something that related of just the mindset of a champion, and that conditioning is taking some work also.